Hi guys, so today I want to talk to you briefly about adjective order. Now, adjective order is something that causes lots of problems for almost every English learner when they finally discover that adjectives in English before a noun follow a particular order. They realize that they've never probably done it in the correct way and they have no idea how to learn them. So I want to give you a tip about really how you should go about learning these. So first of all, I'll just give you a brief introduction to what the order is, although you don't need to worry too much about this. I'll explain why in a moment. So of all the adjectives that you can have, sometimes, we basically categorize adjectives according to their function, according to the meaning that they give to the noun. So we categorize these and then we put them in a particular order. So the first and most important one is always opinion. Opinion is always the first adjective which goes before a noun. Then you have, let's say, dimensions, so the size, the length, the height. Then we have a physical quality. This could be thick or thin or fat or hard. Then we've got age. Then we've got the shape. Then we've got color. Then we've got the origin. And then we've got the material. So when you've got these 8 different types of adjectives, it can be very difficult to use them in a practical way. The reason is that now native speakers, if you ask a native speaker what the order of adjectives is before a noun, they will look at you like you're completely crazy. They will have no idea what you're speaking about because native speakers, they don't know this rule. They just follow a particular pattern. So here's something that you need to know. In all of my years teaching English, when we teach the order of adjectives, my students are able to then after I teach them, they're able to put the adjectives in the correct order with a noun in a typical exercise that teachers give students. The problems come when my non-native English speakers are then speaking to people in English and they realize that they need to put some adjectives in a particular order and they have no idea what to do and they get confused. Now, the question is, why does this happen? If they understood what I explained to them in the class, why are they not then able to use it and put it into practice when they're speaking in English? The reason is that there's simply too many calculations that you need to do in your head. So imagine you want to talk about hair. Okay, if I talk about my hair in the past, I would say I used to have beautiful, long, curly brown hair. So we've got 4 adjectives to give a general description or the best description we can give about my hair in the past. Now, of course, now I'm bald, so I only need 1 adjective, bold. I'm bold. So it's a lot easier for me now. So we've got these 4 adjectives. Now, imagine you're going to say these adjectives in a particular order. Would you know which order to put those adjectives in? Now, probably not. Now, the reason is that when you're speaking in English and you want to use a few different adjectives to describe a noun, you have a problem because first you need to individually categorize each of the adjectives and then you need to compare it to the rule which governs the order and then put them in the logical order that they follow. This is basically too many calculations for the brain to do when you're speaking in English. So we can teach this, but in practical terms, it's almost impossible for students to actually use this in everyday English. Now that's a problem for you. So what should you do? Well, I found that teaching the adjective order is not so much useless, but it's very difficult to put in practice after. Let's look at what native speakers do to put adjectives in order. So basically, as I said, native speakers have no idea that adjectives follow a particular order. Simply put, native speakers have only heard adjectives in a particular order. So any other order will sound strange and incorrect to them, but they won't know why it sounds strange or why it sounds incorrect. It's basically just the fact that they've only heard them in a particular order. So if they hear them or say them in a different order, it sounds strange. So how can you copy native speakers to learn them and be able to use them effectively? The best thing is do what native speakers do. Only expose yourself to correct orders of adjectives, and then eventually, when you've seen and heard enough combinations of adjectives in the correct order, all other orders will sound strange. So that's the best thing that you should aim for when learning English, to aim to achieve what native speakers have, which is everything that's not correct just sounds strange, but they don't know why. That's what you should aim for. So how can you do this? Well, by far the best way to do this is by reading fiction. So all of my students that read a lot of fiction, they're able to do this, and they're able to put the adjectives in a particular order, well, in the correct order, but they don't know why it's correct. Now, why do I say fiction? Well, the reason is, in fiction, there's lots and lots and lots of adjectives and adverbs. Why? Because fiction is telling a story. To tell a story effectively, you naturally use lots of adjectives and lots of adverbs to describe what's happening in the story. So fiction is fantastic for adjectives because it's full of multiple adjectives and adverbs to describe a particular noun or action, if it's the case with adverbs. Here we're looking at adjectives. So by reading lots of fiction, you will see many, many correct combinations of adjectives. And then the more you read, the more the correct combination of adjectives will sound. Okay, so you really don't have to panic too much about this long list of 8 different categories of adjectives and how you can put it into practical use. What you should simply do is expose yourself to lots and lots of correct orders of these adjectives, and eventually they'll sound correct. This is also true of series and films, because series and films also use a lot of adjectives, not as much as in fiction though. Fiction is by far the best. Okay. What else? Now, the most important adjective, as I said, you will never use 8 different adjectives, which is all the categories, to describe one noun. Typically, we use 2 or 3, and sometimes to describe hair, we'll use 4. Okay, so what I recommend you do is the order of adjectives follows this logic, which is the adjective which describes the noun in essence is always closest to the noun. So the adjectives that are closer to the noun, which will be the last adjectives as you're speaking, they're always, let's say, the most important adjectives or the noun in essence. As you get further away, so the first adjectives, these are more subjective opinions. So the most important adjective is always the first one, which is the first is always your opinion. So this is your subjective opinion of the noun. So if this is something you can practice very easily now. You give your opinion, one more adjective, so an adjective of opinion, one more adjective to describe the noun, and then the noun. Okay, so things like beautiful, lovely, adorable, ugly. These are all subjective adjectives of opinion, and they will always go first. So an easy way to do this is just by practicing with 2 adjectives. An adjective of opinion, then an adjective which best describes the noun, and then the noun, and that's it. But the best long-term strategy is not doing exercises, it's reading fiction. I hope that helps.